Hello students, hello and welcome. This is Ayesha Khan, your UGC NET English faculty at Super Coaching by Testbook. Welcome to today's video wherein we are going to talk about how I cleared my UGC NET exam, right? We're going to talk about how I cracked the NET exam. So today's topic of discussion is going to be my journey towards clearing the NET exam. And I'm pretty sure this is the exam that all of you are also trying to clear, to crack, right? So when I gave my exam, it was immediately after completing my master's. When I completed my master's in English literature, immediately after that, I gave my exam. It was my very first attempt and I did manage to clear it in the very first attempt. How did I do it? How did I clear the exam in a very first attempt? At that point of time, I did not have much sources to refer to, right? I did not have much guidance. So what I did is most of what my preparation was actually self-study. So I made my own notes, right? How did I make my notes? I found a lot of reliable sources from the internet. Plus, there were some books. In fact, there were a couple of books that I refer to, especially for the history of English literature, right? Because what happens is, this is that one topic notes till the day. I teach from these notes when I teach in class. Okay? Besides this, besides self-study, besides making my notes, another thing that I did is I practiced as many questions as I could. So I found many sources for what you people call the PYQs, right? PYQs or PYPs, the previous year papers, which are very, very easily available online, and the questions from those papers, right? This is what I solved. I tested my knowledge. I looked at all those things, all those topics that I had to cover, right? This gave me some idea of all the topics that were required to be covered. This also gave me an idea of the pattern of the exam. Okay, this is how I managed to clear my exam in the very first attempt. Now, something that I get asked very, very frequently is it possible to clear the exam with self-study alone, right? Is it possible to clear NET exam without any guidance? And I would say yes, it is. If you're very disciplined, because it's a competitive exam and one of the toughest competitive exams, right? So it does demand a lot of discipline, right? A lot of consistency as well. So if you're somebody who's self-disciplined, who's very, very consistent, who can actually manage everything on their own, you can definitely clear the NET exam on their own, right? But what we've observed very recently is the kind of question that they've started asking you are very different, right? Although the syllabus as such hasn't changed, but what all is incorporated, what all is included within that same syllabus has changed. For example, earlier when they used to ask you questions from Indian literature, most, if not all, most of the questions used to be about all those writers who write in English language, right? So all the novels and novelists in English language. But now what has happened is they've also started asking you about writers who write in regional languages, right? Let's say Kannada, let's say Tamil, let's say Marathi. So these writers have also become important. Their works have been translated into English, and they've also started asking you questions from Indian aesthetics. The Indian aesthetic theory is also one of the topics that has started commanding questions in the UGC NET exam. Now, when this happens, when they add more topics within the same unit, the same broad unit called Indian literature, it becomes very difficult for a student to manage on his or her own self, right? They have to have some sort of guidance, because what the guidance does is it gives you a sense of direction, right? It gives you a sense of direction. It strategizes your study. You have to study yourself anyway, right? It is anyway going to be self-study, but do you get some guidance? Do you get some support? Do you get some direction through coachings? Yes, you do, right? So I would say yes, you definitely can clear NET exam by self-study alone, but it becomes very, very difficult. It becomes very, very daunting. So guidance is always preferable. It is always advisable that you have some sort of teaching modes, right? Some sort of reliable resources especially. So yeah. Now after this, Another thing that I want to talk to you about is all the do's that I think you should follow, that you should stick to if you want to clear your exam, if you're aiming for UGC NET. Okay? First of all, I think this is something that every student who's aspiring for UGC NET should know, that the starting point of the preparation has to be the previous year papers, because once you attempt the previous year papers, you get an idea, you can get an estimate about how much you need to prepare, what is going to be the pattern, how many questions can be expected from a certain unit. Those are the kind of things that you'll get to know, right? And after all your preparation is done, your study is done, you've covered all the units thoroughly, right? You need to come back to the same papers and attempt them to test your knowledge, to see how much have you prepared. Okay? Now what happens between these two points, between the starting point and the ending point, is, first of all, after you've solved the PYPs, the previous year papers, you need to make a study plan. So look at the syllabus, which is available on the UGC NET website. Look at that syllabus. We have 10 units. Strategize your preparation, right? Make a study plan. Decide that how many units you want to cover first, what unit comes first, what unit comes last. Also, devote a certain number of fixed days or weeks to every single unit, right? So give yourself some deadlines, give yourself some time frame for each and every single unit. And something that I always tell my students is, because NET also happens to be a very important competitive exam in India, this is an exam where only hard work will not get you the exam, right? You also have to know about smart works. Okay? Only clearing the entire syllabus, only covering the entire syllabus will not get you a NET. You also need to know how much time you need to devote to a certain topic. All right? Hanji. So basically, I wouldn't say just smart work, but smart work with hard work will get you your UGC NET exam, right? Now, these are all the don'ts that I think every NET aspirant should follow. But there are, these are some do's that every aspirant should follow. But I think there are some don'ts as well. Most important don't that I think I made a mistake when I was preparing for the NET exam is, I did not focus enough on paper 1, because I thought paper 1 is a general paper. This is not my subject paper. So let me focus all my energy on paper 2, which is my subject paper, right? And I've seen a lot of students make the same mistake. Now what happens is, because your general paper commands 50 questions and your subject paper commands 100 questions, you end up losing a lot of marks in paper 1 if you're not prepared well, if you've spent all your time in paper 2. So first mistake is, do not make that particular mistake. Do cover your paper 1 as well. Secondly, because what happens is, for paper 2, for English, your syllabus is infinite, right? But for paper 1, your syllabus is finite. You have 10 units. They are very doable units. So within a fixed time period, you can actually cover these 10 units from paper 1, right? So make sure you do cover paper 1 very thoroughly. Secondly, when you make your notes, if you are making your notes much like I did, right, do not make your notes very descriptive. Make sure you're not writing actual long paragraphs for those notes, okay? Because what happens is, for this particular exam, what's more important is facts, the trivia information, the years, the titles, the protagonists, right? We do have questions that test your critical ability as well, but mostly it is a memory based exam, so all your trivia information becomes important, okay? So make sure your notes are not very descriptive, okay? Thirdly, another very important mistake that a lot of students make is, because there are so many sources that you can study from on the internet, and right, and not every source is reliable, not every source is fact checked before they put the information online. You people should not rely on every source, right? So do not go for every other website, every other YouTube video, right? Stick to something that is more reliable, right? Internet sources are very useful, and if you can make good use out of that, you can actually take advantage of it. But be very careful with what you choose to rely on. All right, this is your third don't. Do not rely on too many sources. You will end up very confused. Okay? Stick to one source and then prepare your entire syllabus from this particular source. Okay? Now, besides this, do I also have some book recommendations for you people if you're trying to cover your syllabus from books? Yes, I do. So for literary theory, I think this is the book that mostly everybody follows for all the right reasons, because Peter Barry's literary theory is going to be the easiest book to follow, right? Theory is explained in a very nice manner. You will get all the theories in here. So for literary theory, I would recommend this. For the small unit that you have, there's a small unit called language, wherein you have the basics of language and pedagogy. For that particular unit, and that unit commands about 3 to 5 questions, right? For that small unit, I would recommend a book by George Yule. The book is called The Study of Language. This is what I studied, okay? And this book does cover your important concepts like register, like Creole, like pidgin, all those concepts, right? And all those, grammar translation method, all those methods as well. Then obviously for literary terms, I think this is indisputably the best book. You have to cover your literary terms from M.H. Abrams's A Glossary of Literary Terms. Then finally, for Indian literature, I recommend A Concise History, that is a brief history of Indian literature by A.K. Mehrotra, which is Arvind Krishna Mehrotra, right? This is the book that I followed, I read when I wanted to cover my Indian literature. Acha. For British literature, for the history of English literature, or what is called the British literature broadly, the book that I recommend is Edward Elbert's History of English Literature. I know you people also rely on David Dishes, there's also Andrew Sanders, but I think this particular book by him is structured in a very nice manner, right? So you have all the ages, right? The chronology is very clear, all the important works have been covered, and the form is very nice. The organization is, the structure of the particular book is very nice, so it becomes very, very easy to cover the entire history of British literature. So I would recommend this particular book for the history of English literature. Even if you people have your own notes, I think it's always wise to refer to another source like such a book, and you can fact check all your information that you're learning, right? It's always good to cross check. I think this is a very, very reliable book for that. So remember, for history of English literature, it will always be Edward Elbert. I think this is a very, very good book. For theory, you have to rely on Peter Barry. For English, the language, the study of language, the teaching of language, the pedagogy, for that you can rely on George Yule's book, which is called The Study of Language. For literary terms, it is obviously M.H. Abrams. And finally, for Indian literature, A.K. Mehrotra's Concise History of Indian Literature, right? So this is all about how you can clear your exam, right? How I cleared my exam, the kind of sources that you can rely on. Okay, I hope this session has been useful, and I'll see you very soon with another such important and useful session. Till then, take care and good luck.